Neither is Bob with us. Well, I just put those out. Yes.
Yeah.
I think we're going to get started. Appreciate everyone coming here on your early Saturday morning to do a tour with our Parks and Public Works group and learn about all the different projects that will be on the capital improvement program. Some of them you'll find out that we're working on this year, so I'll give you kind of an overview of what we're working on this year, and some will be expanded into the next year. So we will turn this over to our Parks and Public Works Director, Mike Chambliss, to lead us.
Thank you, Mel. Good morning, all. Thank you for joining us here today. I will try to respect your time. Good morning, good evening. So I want to take a few minutes and talk about what can be the three most confusing letters of government, and that's the letter CIP. And it's our own fault in Public Works that is confusing because oftentimes we interchange those three letters to mean three different things. Sometimes we're talking about a capital improvement program. Other times we're talking about capital improvement plans similar to the utility and the non-utility. And then other times, the majority of the time, we're talking about capital improvement projects. So if I slip up and start abbreviating, and at any point any of you don't know which of the three things I'm talking about, please keep me honest and stop me, because the importance of today is to make sure that we're all communicating clearly on all levels about what this is. So let's start and talk about what is a capital improvement program. The black binder in front of you is a draft capital improvement program. It's not the complete program. It's 14 projects that we're going to highlight today. Some of them are existing projects. Some of them are projects that are coming into almost completion. And others are projects that we're going to put forward through this process up to July to hopefully include in the program. And we will have additional meetings to discuss each one of these and explain why we think it's the timing is now, etc. And yes, sir.
Sorry, this is really helpful kind of level setting, right? So the last budget cycle, we kind of learned some terms and some concepts that we didn't really have before. So I'm sure these concepts are in there, but I just got a little bit confused on terminology. So I thought, so I don't get confused and maybe anyone else, maybe just ask about this. So we, in the last cycle, the council tried to learn two concepts, which is, or we were sort of taught two concepts, which is projects. So these are things that have a start and finish date, and it's a sort of big project, specific project. You start it, you end it, and now it's happening. And then we had this other idea, like say street resurfacing, which we used the term program then, and sort of what we sort of learned was this notion of this is something you just fund, and there's things going on within it. Every year we're resurfacing streets, and this year it might be those streets, and that year it might be those streets, but we don't think of those as projects. We think of those as just the ones that rose to the top of the list for this ongoing program. And we sort of think, we need to think about funding, the council needs to think about funding these programs at a certain level so that the pavement, the PMI can be kept overall at kind of, that can be managed. So, so you just use program to mean something, I think, a little different than the way I was just using it. Projects versus programs within some overall something plan is how I but you're trying to get us to lock in on these new definitions, which is fine. I think that's great. Just what would you have us think about or call or label that notion of these ongoing things?
We're going to use the word program too, actually. That is brilliant. The fact that it is broken out that way. When I was recruiting to come here, and I pulled down your capital improvement program, and I saw that you have programs and projects. That is actually one of the reasons why I pushed send on that application button. Not very many cities do that. They treat everything as projects. And a program frame of mind is proper for roads. And we're actually going to be proposing a new program this time around, and that's your bridges. The city owns 3 bridges. Bridges are important pieces of infrastructure that always require maintenance. And we need to establish a bridge program within our capital improvement plans or programs, whatever you want to call it, to make sure that they're getting that proper level of maintenance so we don't wind up on the 5 o'clock wheels. Yes,
okay, so program can mean 1 of 2 things. And we just sort of, and we'll raise our hand if we got confused.
No problem.
Okay, super.
Would you mind just giving us a definition for plan as well while we're at it, since that's one of the 3 Ps that you mentioned in the beginning?
So a plan will be a group of projects, usually to achieve a goal. And in this case, you have 2 different, you have the non-utility and the utility government improvement plan. And I'm going to actually suggest that you need to put on 2 different hats as council members when you're talking about those 2 different plans. When you're talking about the utility capital improvement plans, you're really the board of directors of a business. We are making recommendations on improvements to keep our business functioning, because those are enterprise funds, enterprise operations. They are run like businesses. And then the non-utility capital improvement plan, those you need your council person hat on. Those aren't enterprise actions. So it's normal governance. So
we have basically we have two plans.
you have 2 plans
We have 2 plans. Within each of those plans, there are a number of programs,
and projects.
and within those programs, there could be projects, and outside of those programs, there could be projects.
Clear as mud. Like I said, the most confusing 3 letters in government is CIP. Or
It sounds like it's just the 3 most confusing letters in the alphabet are just P.
Mike, there is one more CIP item. And if you're an account,
Yeah.
Councilman Mayhew, it's construction in progress. So.
Oh.
We got a little bit of that.
I was going to suggest that those same 3 letters could be really confusing if you reverse them and start talking about your CPIs. But anyway, and how those are cut. So what is this capital improvement program? It's a short to medium range planning tool. And typically, they really don't go out past 10 years. Some places actually do. Caltrans, they have a 20-year planning horizon, but that's because they're dealing with projects across the entire state of California in the trillions of dollars, and they need that far of a horizon to do that budget. Here, our planning time period is from 2 to 6 years. And what that does is allow you to put together a matrix of a variety of different projects or programs, and allows you to assign funding to them. So the budget is kind of smoothed out. You don't have peaks and valleys in your budget, because this year you got to buy a bridge, and then next year you get done. So it allows you to do debt. You take on debt, control payments back for that debt, so you don't wind up in trouble and have to hawk City Hall, which I hear is happening somewhere around here. So that is what this tool does. It also identifies, your capital projects, equipment, major infrastructure expenses. You're not going to find it here to change the carpet in an office. You may find change the carpet in 5 buildings, because at that point you're hitting a threshold where it becomes a pretty significant project. Normal maintenance, not in this binder. These are major infrastructure improvements, often in the hundreds to millions of dollars of expenditures. This is probably where you're going to spend the most money you spend while you're occupying your office. And some of these numbers are truly going to be staggering. Even with the real estate as high as it is around here, it doesn't come close to some of the projects that we're going to be doing primarily at the wastewater treatment plant. So if there's any questions or anything, please reach out to us. I have a whole team and we will make ourselves available to help answer any of those questions about those numbers. The other thing this device and process does is it provides a communication link between departments. Oftentimes, you know, in government, you're kind of siloed. You know, the police does what the police does, the fire department does what the fire department does. We do what we do in public works. We actually have the benefit of touching all departments because of our facilities component, but oftentimes other departments don't really ever sit down at a table and work on things together. So a good program, you're having ongoing meetings, so there's no surprises. So you're not scrambling like we've been scrambling the last few months because I just got here. And so going forward, there will be no surprises and things. There will be a regularly scheduled meeting, probably every 2 months, for the department heads to get together and talk about their needs so that we can program for those and plan for those. So why do we need it? Transparency, primarily. It provides a transparent process to go ahead and evaluate each project and its merits. You're going to want to know why we need to spend $1.5 million on Meadowbrook Bridge, and that's our job, is to let you know why we need to spend $1 million on Meadowbrook Bridge. And in here, we've provided not only the proposed project sheet, but we've given you the bridge inspection report, which explains why we need to spend $1.5 million on Meadowbrook Bridge. And these documents will be uploaded to the website and will be available for the constituents to see. It provides an opportunity to focus on preserving infrastructure. Infrastructure is often kind of forgotten about until it breaks. And the goal of this is to maintain it so it does not break. Normally when infrastructure breaks, it's a very bad day for a lot of people. Just last week, we had a water line break out in Ernie's Grove. We responded and my staff did a great job and they took care of it within 15 hours. But that was infrastructure failing. And the people affected, they were thinking about water all day. I assure you, they didn't think about water at any point in the 3 years before that happened. So this allows you to think about that and make sure you're on top of those things. Oftentimes, this is required by regulatory agencies, whether it be state or federal governments, and it also is an often precursor to qualify for grant funding. Grants come with a lot of strings attached and rules, and normally the rules are, you know, has your council taken action on this? Have you met with the public? Has there been public input on this? All those things are points as you go through the grant process, and this helps with that. It allows for a systematic evaluation of all the projects so that whoever has the loudest voice in the room, their project doesn't get unfair weight. It provides the financing ability to stabilize the debt, consolidate projects, and reduce borrowing and construction costs. Oftentimes when we're going through the process of evaluating projects in here, we combine projects. So we're only paying one mobilization or lowering the materials cost because we're buying more of it. This serves as a public relations, a recruitment tool, and even an economic development tool. I looked at this when I was thinking about coming here. I assure you that businesses will pull this off the internet and look at it if they're considering coming here. Cities that do not have a strong, robust capital program, a lot of places don't want to invest in that because they're not showing that the council's focused and planning and looking down the road. They're in a reaction mode, and that's bad business if you're thinking about investing millions of dollars in a community. You want stability. And once again, it creates that opportunity to cooperate between departments. I know I mentioned that before, but it's huge. When all the departments are cooperating together, we're all firing on all cylinders, and the citizens are getting the best services that they can get. And I can tell you that's why I come to work every day. I come to work to deliver the best services I can to the citizens of Snoqualmie. And I can speak for my team. That's why they are there too. And that makes me very happy. It makes it very easy to come to work. So with that said, here come the qualifiers. Sorry. Please recognize this document that we printed is a snapshot in time, specifically yesterday at 11 a.m. We want to provide you with the best, most accurate, up-to-date information we can at all times when we're coming before you, etc. That's why sometimes the numbers are a little bit different. There are many things in this world that are out of everybody's control. The situation in Ukraine has caused oil prices to go all over the place. Well, oil is a major component of asphalt. It's like 80% of asphalt. And now if we do an asphalt project, we're literally paying double than what we talked about 2 years ago. So we'll be updating those numbers and bringing sheets before you. With this binder, the way it's set up, it's my intention to provide you with new sheets that you can replace your old sheets with so that this stays up to date. So you do always have an up-to-date reference sitting on the shelf that you can access. And as we get the rest of the projects going, we're going to be giving you some more binders because there's literally 40 projects on the program currently. We're just focusing on 14 of them today. Yes, sir.
So that's fantastic. And just so you know, the previous set of project sheets. So I have a binder, my city binder that I carry around, and I have sort of what I think are the most important things I might have to refer back to. So I have, the current biennium budgets in there, for example. But I have all the previous project sheets are just in there because when someone says the such and such project, I was going to go, okay, what was that again? So this is fantastic. The one thing that has sort of been a hard, I think, for council to focus on is, let me back up. I love that you're going to give us updated projects. I think that's absolutely, I endorse that 100%. The one thing I think we maybe need is some way, and maybe with finance, maybe finance department can work something out for you where they sort of do a bridge, but I think as we go along, we have, okay, there was that budget, biennial budget that was passed, and as we get farther and farther into the biennium, I would imagine that more and more of the projects will be updated as compared to, and I know sometimes you come in under cost on projects, sometimes under cost. So it just gets out of date, not out of date, out of sync. That's the word. So if we could just have some way to sort of bridge, and it doesn't, I don't think it has to be terribly complex, but the ability to just sort of say, okay, this one, used to be $100, now it's $125, but actually halfway along there, we went from $100 to 115, and now we're at 125. Just a way that we could sort of, tune back to the most recent budget appropriation, and just sort of say, okay, I got it. That's how much difference we have here. Just some simple way. For council members, we don't understand complex things. Not your way. You understand them, but what's that?
I don't believe.
So, but help us just kind of get a picture on that. I think that will take care of at least half the questions, if not close to the majority of questions that I've seen in my term on council going on with respect to these kind of changes. If we can just sort of understand at a snap, okay, how does that relate back? Okay, what's the key? Okay, got it. So if you could just design, or maybe ask finance to do it for you, I think that would really help a lot in kind of how we collectively work with you and the council as we go forward.
And one of the other things to help with that is additional sheets will have revision and dates at the bottom.
Yeah.
So if you want to, you can actually keep the old sheet. And as they get updated, then you can look between the sheets to see how projects have changed also.
You want to wait, check.
Like
No,
I
but
said,
yeah,
we're gonna have
anything you do to
use
help us.
more time.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
coming.
But yes, absolutely. A key thing, also a key component that we need to talk about is the life cycle of a project. In your roles, you're not going to touch this once or touch a project once and then it goes away and gets done and then we have you out and cut a ribbon. Each project has to go through design and oftentimes cost evaluation and then bid projects and then the construction, and then we get to cut the ribbon. In each step along that way, it's the project's coming back for you. So please don't think like, oh, we just saw this. Why is this thing back? It's us keeping you informed and involved in the process as we go along. And if you ever start feeling like, why are we talking about this again? Please give us a call. We'll explain why, or ask us during the meeting. We'll gladly explain why. But we definitely want you involved in the process. We definitely want the input. And so we will be coming back. Additionally, because we're doing a 2 to 6 year program, things are going to break. And we don't set aside huge amounts of money in the budget and reserve that for those things that are going to break. So when things break, we'll be back. And then we get to do an add and a modification. So you're going to see this a lot. This isn't something that's just going to sit on the shelf and you're never going to touch it. Yes, sir.
Why is that? Why do we not have do we have no emergency fund when a water main breaks or something like that? Is that not something that we plan for the accidents? And
we have
and
operational
breakage?
reserves that we can draw on for those emergencies, but machinery doesn't always behave. And so the good situations, you have 6 months of notice that this piece of machinery is going to need to be replaced. Oftentimes you get about a week's notice or 3 days from the notice. Now with the Tyler rollout and the enterprise asset management component that we're going to have access to in a couple of years, there is the ability, maybe, because I'm not sure what features we bought, to do some predictive analysis once that gets running for a little bit of time, so that we can do a little bit of Johnny Carson, tell the future. Yeah. To know, okay, that piece of machinery is going to go down.
Right, but at that point, we've spent all our money on the analysts.
So that's where we're going, but we're not there yet. So hopefully in the future, those ads will reduce. But something always happens. A tanker accident that burns up your road, stuff happens. And so we'll be back. Yes, sir.
I had 2 thoughts. One is we do have reserves for emergencies like that. And the thing to understand is he can't spend them without our okay. Right? So if something like that happens, he has to come ask us, can I spend that money? An emergency popped up, can I spend it? So he has to ask us. The second thing is, as he goes along, as he kind of mentioned, there's, projects will change, timing will need to change, or scoping, just things will change as they get closer and closer and more into a project. And he'll have to come back and ask us, hey, can I move this, here and move that there? And there's a certain amount that he's allowed to do on his own. And there's a certain amount he has to come back and ask us for at council. And I'll just say on the side, I think the mayor and I have shared this point of view when she was on council, and I suspect she still shares it, which is we may require them to come back to us more often than is really useful or necessary. And so one thing I would challenge us, the council, to do is keep watching how often he has to come back to us and what did he really have to come back to us, and maybe identify places where, you know what, that probably wasn't necessary. Can we change how we authorize things so that that isn't necessary in places where, I would just say, I think some things we would want to have them keep coming back to us, but I think there's a whole bunch of stuff we make them come to us that maybe there's a better way. Maybe they don't. Maybe it just doesn't seem more authority.
Well, I don't know what you're talking about exactly. I usually don't. But I would say that if I were to err on one side or the other, I'd err on them coming back and us having the oversight. But I'll be really curious to see what those things are that you feel are things that we would not need to bother with.
That's my default error settings. My error setting is to come back too much. So
I would also say your projects, a lot of them have contingencies too.
Correct.
So you are covered by contingencies in the contract as well.
And we didn't used to give them the authority to spend those contingencies. I think I'm not exactly sure where we stand right now, but I think we've been moving to, well, we approved a contingency in the budget, then yes, you can spend that. We already approved that money, so yes. But, you know, some of the nuances like that, you know, where exactly are our requirements set right now, and do we maybe want to reconsider that? So I think I'm just trying to alert you to that, so as you go along, maybe you'll say, was that really necessary? And something will become apparent to you where a question like that might pop up.
the other thing that affects us is external factors. We got a bridge inspection report last week that affected us. State agencies, federal agencies, law changes, etc. All those things have effects and can cause things to change in here. And when something changes in here, it's kind of a chain reaction and things bump all over the place. So we will do our best to make sure that everybody understands why and how things bumped around. And oftentimes it's out of our control. In closing, please rest assured that our primary objective is to get this right. Not only is it the right thing to do, but we all that are deeply involved with these projects know the cost, not only in dollars, but in time. And most agencies are understaffed everywhere. This state I was in, they're all understaffed. And that time lost can be debilitating. So we work really, really hard to maximize our effectiveness and efficiencies to gain every second of that time value that we can, along with our deep concern for the public dollar. We do not want to waste money. We'd much rather spend the money on the community so they're getting the benefit of those taxes. So that drives us to really making sure that we get these numbers right, and it drives some of the changes. And I'm sorry about that, but we want to make sure that you have the most up-to-date, current, effective information so that you can make the decisions that we're asking you to make. Are there any questions? Shall we take a quick break and then hit the bands? Not getting too hard. I want to get the bands. Oh, I forgot. We can do it.
Yeah.
Before we get on.